So if we do break lower and we get this weakness, midpoint of that wick right here, consequent encroachment, it could drop down there, not take out that low. So in your notes, anytime there is a short, stubby little wick, okay, and what do I mean by that? It would look like, look how big the candle is here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, see how long this candle is, and then how little the tail is, the little wick. That to me is a very short, stubby little wick. In relationship, how am I basing whether a wick above a candle or below a candle is stubby and short? It's relative to its candle size from high to low. So that way there's your reference point. Versus something like this. So you have a long wick, and it's the majority of the entirety of the candle. See that? So in relationship, this tail or wick on the low of the candle is short and stubby. And many times you're going to find, this is what you want to have in your journal and in your study notes. Many times that type of low will get probed without going through it. And it'll stop at consequent encroachment for it right there. So in other words, give me a visual of what I'm referring to. It could drop down, come right to it, or just below it a little bit, and then retrace, and then at a later time come back down through it. Whereas a long-wicked candle, generally, if you're on the right direction, in other words, if you're looking at a wick like this and you're bearish, many times it'll go right to consequent encroachment and stop dead in its tracks and go the other way. Or if it's really weak, it'll only go up like 1/4 of the wick, stop right there, not even go to consequent encroachment, and then drop. The instances that it does that very thing, that is a real hardline indicator that you are in a very bearish market. Because generally you want to see the algorithm reprice back to consequent encroachment of a wick. If you're bearish, if it's a very, very long wick like that, consequent encroachment, which is the midpoint of the long wicked gaps, they're barriers. But if it can't even reach that while you're bearish, and it goes to the quarter range of the entirety of that wick, not the full body high and low, where the wick is generated from the high down to, in this case, because it's a higher closing candle, you'd be using that closing price to high. And those relationships will serve you well if you go forward. The other thing I want to teach about this morning for wicks is when you have a area where the candles create a wick, like for instance, like right here. See that? The body comes down essentially to the old fair value gap high there. And then the next candle we open here, we trade back down to the body of the candle. I'm sorry, the opening, or the high end rather, of the fair value gap on this candle right here. I'm trying to be mindful of keeping my mouse still because apparently when I'm talking and my mouse has already moved. So there's a little bit of a misalignment from the live streaming. So it's something I'm trying to make a conscious effort of remembering. But we have this wick on this small little down closed candle right here. The next candle, when it opens and trades up and comes back down, if we have this candle here go up to what would be almost essentially the midpoint or consequent encroachment of the next candle, we don't even know it is going to create this pattern. But we don't know it. But should it form that, generally you will see the consequent encroachment of that wick. If it's bearish, it won't reach it. And you can see that happening right here. I'm not cherry picking that. I'm showing you to go into your charts and you'll see that is the case. Because this candle here is a precursor. Then you get the actual wick here that's on the high. And when you see me sometimes taking live executions and I'm entering trades, I'm sometimes using that very criteria right there and trusting that as I'm seeing the candle open and trades right up to that point here, I'm trusting that it won't even go through consequent encroachment. I'm not fearful of it because it's that type of signature I'm looking for. It's kind of like justify the confidence behind the idea. So anyway,